They have fairly good liquidity on the stock. We've got a very strong U.S. retail following, and then we do a lot of marketing down in the U.S. Market cap is around 120 million. Share price has come back a little bit from that. We're sitting at about $1 today, but sort of a healthy valuation at this point in time. Where are the shares? Management and board is 8%. The bulk of that is with our executive chairman, Dale Corman. He's got 6 of that 8%. And then there's a group of high net worth individuals, and that represents about half of the outstanding shares. And really, this is a group of people that mostly Dale and myself and Chris have known for a long time and have been good supporters of the company. Fleshing out the management structure, we've got Dale, and for those of you that don't know Dale, Dale's been in the industry for his whole life. His big win was with Western Silver, and he took Western Silver from a bit of an exploration play, did some engineering on that, sold Western Silver to Glamis Gold for $1.6 billion. So if you talk to Dale, he says, what are you trying to do with Western Copper and Gold? It's exactly the same thing here. It's really to create some good shareholder value. I'm the guy in the middle there. It's a bit of a younger picture. Had a little bit more hair back then. I've been in the mining industry my whole life as well, and worked for a number of big companies before joining Western Copper and Gold. The last guy there is a very key member. Cam Brown, our Vice President of Engineering, spent the bulk of his career with Bechtel Engineering. He was project manager on the Las Palambras project, so he understands big copper projects, and that's exactly what we have here. I don't usually show the board, but there's a couple of new additions to the board. They're the two names at the bottom of that list. First of all is Tara Christie, and Tara is just across the way. She's runs Banyan Gold, but also importantly, she was instrumental in the establishment of YESA, which is the regulatory body in the Yukon. She's a longtime Yukoner and brings some good Yukon experience to the company. The guy at the bottom there, Ken Williamson, he came on the board a little less than a year ago. He was on the board of Gold Corp. He was on the board of Tahoe Resources, a very senior board member, and brings a wealth of experience to the board, and has been a great asset. So start off here with the headline numbers. If you look at the gold and you add those together, you're looking at 18 million ounces of gold, and on the copper side, at 10 billion pounds of copper. So this is a very large copper gold project. You might look at those and go, well, is it a copper project? Is it a gold project? Well, when we look at the projected revenue from this project, you can see it's almost 50-50. You're looking at 46% of the revenue from copper, about 43% from gold, and then a good chunk from moly and a little bit of silver. How does this fit in the world of copper and gold projects? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the copper projects. And, I encourage you all to wander around this convention and say, well, how many copper projects are there? And what you'll find is probably there's maybe 5% of the companies here are actually doing copper. It's a different animal than gold. Copper deposits, they tend to be bigger, but they're fewer and far between. And so we went onto the TSX and TSX Venture and put every copper project that had, at least an economic study that had been done on it onto a map, and that's what you're left with, about 15 projects. And if you, whittle those down to projects that have reasonable economics, have good relationship with indigenous communities, have a clear path through permitting, that gets to a very, very short sort of number. So, in the copper world, we're a good-sized copper project in a pretty small pool of copper projects. In the gold world, we're just big. 18 million ounces of gold puts us in the top 10 undeveloped gold deposits based on overall ounces. As I'll show you, this is where the resource is now, and it's growing from there. And again, for those of you that are familiar with these projects, you got to take a look at these, do they have regulatory challenges? Do they have economic challenges in terms of that they just don't add up at the current gold price? And the answer for a number of those projects is yes. So, in terms of being an economic project with a clear path through permitting, we're better than a top 10. We're probably a top 1 or 2. So let's talk a little bit about the project as is, and then I'm going to talk a bit about our exploration and the success that we've had there. So first of all, taking a look at the deposit, if you took a cross-section, and this is a cross-section through it, on the surface of the deposit, shown there in yellow, is our gold cap. And so this is enriched in gold, depleted in copper. That's 160 million tons at 0.3 gram per ton gold. That gets mined off first, and we put that onto a gold heap leach. Then beneath that is the main part of the deposit. And the main deposit is 965 million tons at 0.5% copper equivalent. It's pretty good size, reasonable grade in terms of copper projects going forward. But importantly, as shown in the light orange there, is the first 4 years. And in the first 4 years, we're actually looking at a 0.7% copper equivalent grade. That's what really drives the economics. That's what makes this project work as well as it does, because 0.7 for these large porphyry deposits is a very, very good grade. So shown in the orange and the yellow, that's the reserve. So that's essentially a little over 1 billion tons. That's the 8.9 million ounces of gold and 4.5 billion pounds of copper. Beneath that, in the red and the blue, is the inferred resource. That's all mineable. It just hasn't been drilled significantly to be added into the reserve. That basically doubles the overall size. So when we look at the reserve, that's a 22-year reserve. When we look at putting a pit around that inferred resource, brings it up to 55 years. So there's half a century of ore identified here already, and as I'll show you, it's just growing from there. And it has economics. I mean, this is at spot, so $1,550 gold and $275 copper, and copper is above that, and gold is pretty close to that right now. But $3 billion net present value, 26% IRR after tax. So it's a big project, and as you'll see, it's got a pretty big capital cost, but this is an economic project at today's commodity prices. And you think those commodity prices are too aggressive? Well, let's look at it at some more conservative prices. At $1,000 gold and $2 copper, this project still has a 15% IRR after tax. Why does it add up as well as it does? Two key reasons, and they're circled there in that table. One is that early high grade, as I talked about before. That 0.7 is a significant increase in grade over the first period and drives the economics. The other is the strip ratio. 0.6 to 1 life of mine strip ratio. That is a best-in-class strip ratio, key driver of the economics, and one of the key reasons why this project works as well as it does. Capital, big projects have big price tags. $2.5 billion, depending on your view of the world, is a cheap copper mine or an expensive gold mine. But really what we're showing in this chart here is that in terms of capital intensity, so that's US dollars per ton of copper equivalent produced per year, we're right in the average. We're not particularly expensive, we're not particularly cheap, we're just what you would expect a capital cost for a project of this size to cost. And a little bit about social license. I mean, you don't build mines in this day and age without working very closely with the community, and particularly in the north, with the Indigenous and First Nation community and the government. We've got a great relationship. We've been up there for 12 years. We sponsor a lot of different initiatives. We're involved with a number of organizations. And Yukon, I mean, this pavilion is a testament to the support of the Yukon government for mining in the Yukon, and we get great support. And that was sort of proven a couple of years ago when there was the Gateway project was announced, 3 roads being built in the Yukon, and the Prime Minister Trudeau showed up for that announcement. I'm pleased to say that they've signed an agreement with the First Nations for the first part of our road. They just made an announcement on an agreement on a second road where the agreements were together, and these will be going forward this year. So that's sort of the casino project as as it sort of was last year, feasibility study, good community support, key permitting hurdles removed. But then I really want to talk to you about what we've done in the past year. And really, it's a number of good drilling results that we got over the past year. And an acquisition. So to start, the first thing that we sort of did is we acquired the project next to us. So you can see we're the sort of blue there, that's the casino project. We acquired the Canadian Creek project, which is located directly to the west of us. I mean, why is this important? It's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you look at those purple dots, those are golden soils. You can see that right next to our project, bleeding on to that package of land is where the highest golden soils is. It's the rest of our deposit. We've known this for a while. We've talked to this group for a number of years. And finally, we came to an agreement and we've acquired this. And so this is now ours. So we now have the rest of the big casino deposit. The other key thing here is there's a number of other targets on the project as well that we think hold a lot of promise. The other thing we did last year is infill drilling. And the infill drilling the goal was to drill out the inferred. So this is showing a picture of the pit. The blue chunks in there are inferred resource. What does that mean? It means it's been drilled sparsely. We can't include it in the reserve. So we went in, we thought it was going to add in the order of sort of 100 to 150 million tons. That drilling is complete, and we expect that that's about exactly what we got. When our geologists have looked at it, they said, we accomplished exactly what we'd hoped to accomplish there, which is adding those additional tons. While we were doing the infill drilling, we had a couple of pleasant surprises. So the first one was the high-grade gold. And so we drilled the bottom of those three holes, the one in the middle, 55 grams per ton over essentially 3 meters. And we'd encountered this before, but this is now the third time that we'd seen this high-grade gold. And you see this once and it's interesting. You get it twice and maybe there's something there. You get it 3 times and you start to spot a trend. And so we're pretty excited about this. And as I'll show you in a bit, we've got a big plan for this year in 2020 to sort of further delineate it. So that was excitement number 1. Excitement number 2 was the northern zone. And so all those blue dots are the new drilling, and I don't have numbers next to them, but if I had numbers next to them, the ones on the bottom were some of the first ones drilled, and we're like, there's a lot more copper and gold up there than we thought. We better go back up there when we finish the infill. So we finished the infill, and then we went back up. We drilled all those holes. 9 out of the 10 have significant widths of mineralization, essentially top to bottom. 7 of the 10 end in mineralization. Well, what's happening there? Well, what's happening is it's a complete other porphyry that we've hit. So we've got the casino porphyry, and the casino porphyry is weathered, and for the geologists in the room, and I see a couple of them over there, we were following out the supergene blanket, and what do we hit? But we hit hypogene. And so the hypogene suggests that it's a new porphyry immediately adjacent. It's all ore grade material. We've just hit the edge of it. We don't even know how deep it is, since top to bottom from our drill holes is all mineralization. So that's going to be the other thing that we're going to be looking at next year is, how far does that go? How deep is it? But, we've got one big porphyry with casino. Now we've got a second big porphyry with the northern casino. And then the next is the western step out. And the western step out, what we hit here, we hit some good thick bits of mineralization, but again, we started to hit this anomalous gold. And you can see, again, we've got a 3.6 gram per ton intercept here. So again, we're hitting some weird anomalous gold. And keep in mind that the reserve grade on this project is 0.24 gold. So this is more than 10 times, it's 15 times the gold grade of our reserve. So this is a very anomalous result. So looking forward into 2020, 3 sort of targets. First of all is this gold. And so we went back into our database and we said, let's flag all of our gold intercepts that are greater than 2 grams per ton. When we did that, they're all in this belt. The second thing that we did is we said, well, is there any other sort of indicator minerals in this area that we're seeing? And what we found is that there's a fairly high level of anomalous level of bismuth as compared to the rest of the deposit. So we have a different event. We have an event that laid down the porphyry. Now we have a different event that's put into this higher grade gold. We haven't got a lot of angle holes in that. It's all vertical holes. So our thought is that the gold exists in vertical structures. We're going to go back in this year, do some angle holes, some small step outs. It's going to be sort of a bit finicky drilling, but 55 gram per ton, 73 gram per ton, bunch of 2 gram plus. If we can begin to string that together, and put together this high-grade gold zone in the south, obviously changes the nature of the deposit significantly. So that's going to be a focus of the drilling this year. The next is the new porphyry zone. I mean, we just have the edge of this. We don't know how big this is going to be. People come to me and say, well, Paul, why, you've got a huge copper deposit. Why do you need to get it bigger? And it's like, well, we're not at the too big for anybody to ignore. That's the level that we're going to get to. I mean, right now we're sort of a top 10 deposit. If we get into a top 2 or 3, which we could do if we bring in these other porphyries and they grow, to a significant size, that will be significant. And then the last part of the target is going to be, looking at this new Canadian Creek project that we have to the west of us. And sort of there's 2 key targets on that. One is again directly adjacent to us in Casino B. You can see there's two drill holes in that hit 0.7 over around 50 meters in terms of gold. It tends to be more gold focused. And again, if we can think that we can get some higher grade gold there, add in this high grade gold zone to the south, what that does is it opens up, maybe there's a different project to start this off. Rather than the big porphyry, you've got a higher grade gold heap leach or mill operation to start here. And the other one is really the Anna target. And the Anna target, if you look at the geophysics, if you look at the drilling that's been around the edge of that, it's another porphyry. So we've got Casino, one porphyry well defined. We've got North Casino, definitely ore grade material there. We need to sort of see the size of it. And we've got Anna, which is a third porphyry, not really ever been drilled. So we've gone from 1 to 3. Some really exciting sort of potential for this year in terms of the drilling. And we're in a pretty exciting district. I haven't talked a lot about our neighbors, but having Newmont next door is it used to be Gold Corp, now it's Newmont. The White Gold Group, sort of doing earlier stage exploration around us. I mean, you look at that map is 25 million ounces of gold. And you look around the world globally, and where do you have, a region which is 25 million ounces of gold? Ourselves, White Gold, Newmont, all did exploration last year. All those numbers are going to go up. This is a important global district that is developing here. We have the key asset in the middle of it, and so we're pretty excited about how things are going to work moving forward. So that sort of summarizes it. I mean, we've got this great deposit. We've got a good feasibility study located in this great emerging gold district. Long mine life, lots of exploration potential. For those investors that are wondering when the time to buy, this is a great time to buy the shares. Why? We've got a new resource that should be coming out here in a couple months. It's right now it's 18 million ounces of gold, 10 billion pounds of copper. The numbers are just going to go up from there. So we're certainly excited about what that's going to look like, and then the exploration that we're going to be doing this year. And, if you don't believe me, you can pull our research. We've got 3 great research reports, and these, the gentlemen listed on there know the project very, very well. So by all means, phone them up and discuss with them about the project. So with that, I'm pretty much out of time. So thank you guys very, very much.